Okay, well, good afternoon, Aatika. Thank you so much for making yourself available for panel, and for submitting your report on time. I love your
My
punctuality.
second time, and it's like it was just about. There was definitely
Yes,
a moment afterwards. Yeah.
but consistency is key, and that's 2 consecutive wins. So from my heart to yours, thank you so much. Okay, so I'm going to pass over to my colleagues who are going to ask you some questions, and then we'll come back around to me. So we're going to go to Judith, then Sophie, then come back around.
Hi, Aatika. I had just 3 questions. Let's start with the first one, but they all had to do with things you had mentioned in your previous report that I didn't see in this report. So I just wanted to ask you firstly about the COVID conscious campaign. Because originally you said that it was pushed back, and my comment last time was personally I thought it was a very important thing that shouldn't really be pushed back. So I just wanted to ask what's going on with that one.
Okay, so thank you very much for your question. With the COVID conscious campaign, so you're absolutely correct. That has been pushed back, as I mentioned in the last scrutiny panel, because it didn't. With the other stuff that were going on, especially the things that we weren't expecting, so like the striking action, the student strike that came about, the work for Ukraine that also, we weren't expecting. Things like that took precedent over the COVID conscious campaign, especially since it wasn't something that the student body was necessarily asking for. It was more coming from my and also the officers' belief that we do need to remind the student body about these things. Of course, we do have. So, what the COVID conscious campaign was basically just infographic facts, things like that being projected on the screens, being present as on the student union website pages, so that students can look at them. We do have something similar from the university. So, my way of thinking was, if there are other things that take precedent that we have to respond to immediately, those come first, and the COVID conscious thing would come second, since we do have something similar. However, I am, because I the work has gone into it, and I don't think it should be something that's completely neglected. So obviously Jabed is a continuing officer. This is something similar to my Know Your Black Britain exhibition, which, because a lot of work has gone into it, and it was shown for a specific period of time. Both of those things are going to be, I guess, lending to the next officer team, so that they can use that as well, because the stuff that I did for the exhibition, and also for COVID conscious, those are facts that still remain. It's not necessarily something that's moving. Of course, they can add to it if they'd like, but the concept, the graphics, all of those things, I'm submitting for them to work with, so that it does get used.
Okay, thank you so much for answering that question. I'm very happy to hear that it's not like disregarded, but it does make sense what you're saying, that other things were a bit more urgent. Two other things I would like you to reflect on, if you wish, you can do that obviously separately, are the student engagement sessions and the mental health day, because again, I haven't seen them in this report now.
Yes.
So has that happened? Was it successful? What are your thoughts on it?
Brilliant. Okay, so first I'm going to start with the student engagement thing. So the what I personally like to call project student engagement, which is basically me just going about, similar to how so we have a Medway student forum, and the way that that's conducted is really we just take a board, a pen, go around speaking to students about their experiences, and noting that down. So that was the format that I was following with this student engagement project, although not taking things down, because I wanted it to be a casual conversation. I did do a bit of that in the library in Dreadnought. However, because I was unwell, I wasn't able to be on campus as much as I would have liked. I'm still working from home now. So, the only thing I could rely on was social media. And so even though I didn't submit it in evidence, for example, this was a few weeks ago, the university is looking in their student success sub-strategy to incorporate decolonization, but we're sort of stuck on how do we go about decolonization. So I made a video, I put out a question box on Instagram, asked people to submit their answers, what they think decolonization is, and taking that and passing it over to the university. So I had to be a bit more creative with how I do that. Obviously, I still would have liked it to be in person, because I feel as though we engage best with students in person. Not everyone has Instagram. Not everyone is necessarily going to be engaging with Instagram. So, I do hope, even though I know maybe by the time I am able to go back to work in person in a more regular way, a lot of students would be off campus. But for now, I'm working with what I have, which is, just relying on Instagram. In terms of University Mental Health Day, yes, I was arranged for to be on the panel, but on the day there were technical difficulties. I ended up hopping to two cafes and a library in central London, because we also had the student strike. Um, and the connection just wouldn't work. So what ended up happening was I just drafted all of the points that I wanted to make about what GSU is doing for mental health, and having someone else who was able to connect read it out. So that's what happened with that, unfortunately. But in terms of other things regarding mental health, I am the officer lead on, so we have stress busters, and especially since the exam period is coming about, along with the staff, we're working on exam stress busters together. So that's the thing that's currently being done for in terms of wellbeing.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Are you planning on, obviously, I know you said you might not be able to return fully to campus while all the students are still here, but is the student engagement session something that you might be passing on to the next officers and president?
Because they weren't necessarily sessions, it really was just me wearing my officer shirt so that people can recognize me as such, and going about talking to students in a really casual way so they can be in general. I'd be like, hi, just wanted to, come up and talk to you guys. Did you know we have a student assembly that's coming up? So it was just sort of like a really casual conversation. And it wasn't even necessarily just in Dreadnought. So it could be places that the SU isn't based. So the library, but the library is where you also get a lot of students. So we do have a handover period for the officers with the new team, and that's definitely something I would suggest. Also, since we're coming out of COVID, I would maybe suggest something more regular, something more formal, so actual forums that they can have, which aren't necessarily student assembly. So that is definitely an idea I would pass on. But as for now, we're all just, I guess, using the means that we do have to communicate with students.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you so much. That's all the questions I had.
Hi, Aatika. So I have two questions for yourself. So my first question was on your Know Your Student Rights campaign. And I saw in your report you spoke about working with other officers from different unis in the form of a letter, signing and drafting it. I just wanted to find out how you found that and what you hope to gain from doing that.
Okay, brilliant. So thank you for that question. So I don't think I mentioned this in my last scrutiny panel, so it's worth mentioning now. This is actually the second letter that I've, so this letter, I didn't have so much of a hand in drafting it more than, it was more, I looked over what someone had drafted and made changes and signed it and put it out there. As for the other letter that I hadn't mentioned, it was very similar to this one, in which it was about, telling the government that they can't interfere with student democracy, and they can't interfere with student organizing. So in the first letter, it was regarding an incident that happened in London School of Economics, where a speaker was brought in that some students weren't pleased with, and non-violently protested outside the university. You had MPs that weren't too pleased with that and made noise about it, and so we barked back and said, well, actually, it's our right to protest as students if we're doing it peacefully. I helped write a majority of that letter and put that out. It's on my Instagram, and this letter was regarding the National Union of Students conference, where there was once again, following the election of the president and some other bits around student organizing, MPs who had things to say, which we felt many SABs wasn't their place to say. So once again, it was, how I found it was, it's really nice to see sabbatical officers come together, because even though our work as student union officers are focused on our, for our members, there is a piece that's about, all of us doing work for the wider student body of the nation. And, if you're a bit ambitious, students of the world. So we always sort of like champion this whole, students have rights, students everywhere. So it was really great, and I continue to work closely with the SABs on a lot of things, including decolonization. We have a lot of meetups, catch-ups, and we're all really great at supporting each other in our specific work. So it's really nice.
That's great. I look forward to seeing anything else that you put out about this issue. It's definitely an important one. So just as a follow-up to that question, obviously this is a very important issue on multiple fronts. Would this be something that you would want to be passed over to the next set of student officers from when they take their place next year?
100%. So, like I said, this whole collaborating with sabbatical officers, with other sabbatical officers, it wasn't something that necessarily the Greenwich, the membership of GSU necessarily asked for, but it's also about, something that not necessarily a lot of them knew about, the crackdown on, because it's a very small, weird world, this world of SUs. But we felt that this is something in their interests. So it really is up to the sabbatical officers to pick that up and also to do the networking. So a lot of these sabbatical officers who I collaborated with, I met at the National Union of Students conference. I met earlier this year when we had our NUS training for lead and change, when, prepping new officers. So I would 100% recommend and expect the officers to maintain those networks. And I'm kind of hopeful that they will, just because there is that passover from Jabed, from our team to the next team, and he already does have good relationships with other sabbatical officers. So, for example, in London Metropolitan SU. So I do expect that these connections will be maintained, and it will definitely be a recommendation from us sitting officers.
Fantastic. And just I have a second question. So in your report, you spoke about the Palestinian Solidarity Society and the up and coming Jewish Society.
Yeah.
I just wanted to find out how you found how you have found it, and what you're looking towards in the future with it.
Okay, brilliant. So in trying to start these two societies, honestly, it has been difficult, just because these societies aren't, the way that these societies have been started are unorthodox. So usually the way societies would start is you would have a group of students, they have a common interest, they would assign roles to themselves, and then they would, go to the SU, put in their application, and become a society. This was incredibly difficult because this actually stems from the mandate of the student assembly, which occurred in May of last year, following the tensions in Jerusalem, in East Jerusalem. So one of the, besides implementing boycott, divestment, sanctions, to motions from the union were to explore starting a Palestinian or a Palestinian Solidarity Society, and then so that we can have due representation, a Jewish society. So we sort of had to find the students for that. We put out comms for the Palestinian Solidarity Society. We put out comms for the Jewish society. We actually put the ones for the Jewish Society out first earlier this year. It didn't have any take up, unfortunately, so we decided to wait. We put out some comms a few weeks ago, I believe, and still, from what I know, there is no take up. So what we're doing right now is really just, where we can, asking academics if they know of any students who want to, who would be interested in starting a Jewish society. We also did this I've contacted the Union of Jewish Students, and they're happy to help in facilitating this. They were kind to offer their guidance and their contact if any students are kind of, nervous, not sure what starting a society is like, what running a Jewish society is like. Unfortunately, still no take up, but we're still going to keep pushing. For the Palestinian Solidarity Society, there was actually quite a bit of take up with that. And like I said, it was very unorthodox how we had to arrange it. So we had to contact the students who were interested, bring them into a virtual room, speak to them along with the societies coordinator, what running a society is like, what the processes are like, what this society might look like, what the last student assembly intended by having this sort of society. The students that were still interested, gave me their contacts. We brought them into an email, told them what the process is going to be like, had to delegate roles, because there has to be 2 roles for any society to start, which is president and treasurer, had to work it among themselves. It was difficult because there was a lot of us having to chase them and having to delegate roles and ask them if they're okay with these roles, and then it was very difficult. But one thing that I am pleased to announce is that the Palestinian Solidarity Society is underway. They are currently completing their training. We're only waiting for, I think, 2 more members to complete their training, and I have given a bit of a deadline for tomorrow afternoon. Like, training must be complete. If it's not complete, we will just have to, because it's a mandate that was given for this year, it will just have to launch as is. And yeah, we'll hope for the best. But yeah, it was difficult, but I'm happy to know that it's there.
That all sounds amazing. I can't wait to see what comes out of it. Thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Technical support. Okay, pressing on. It's an interesting point you just made, because it is kind of like an organic society inception, which makes it like a bit more of an uphill struggle, because, well, with a normal society, you have, a group of people who are interested, they go through the, the hoops, and it's their passion for it that drives them forward to completion. And sometimes delegation can be a bit, but okay. Fair enough. Okay, cool. So, couple of questions for you. I'm just wondering which one to pick, just because of time. Okay, cool. This is more of a question of just interest, because I'm curious. I'm still similarly on that topic. So I think you sent out an officer press a couple of weeks back.
Yes.
You know what I'm gonna
Yes.
Yeah, and you got that very interesting email response, which didn't go to the whole student body. It only came to, us and that small.
Yes.
So
sorry,
I just,
for a second.
my internet's looking a bit shaky. Okay. Yeah, I thought so. Yes, so I just kind of wanted to ask, what was it kind of like for you? There's not really a right or wrong answer here. I just kind of want to get a better picture of, okay, did you feel as though that you could express your...
Yeah.
Was that
Yeah. Okay. So this actually didn't go to the whole student body. This press that I sent out, officer press, goes out to staff of the university. and it was my decision to sort of link in the trustees, just because I think that the trustees of the union should be linked in that press, but it's actually a technicality that they're not. But yeah, so we have other means of communicating with students. So we have our Wednesday newsletter, we have our social media. This is specifically for staff. And this message that I put out was about Israeli Apartheid Week, which it occurs at different weeks throughout the year, depending on the continent or the region. And yeah, I definitely wrote an impassioned bit about why I thought it was important that Israeli Apartheid Week is observed, and as a university that always champions decolonization, and decolonization is something I'm very passionate about. You know, why this is something that you know, the Palestinian cause is something that we should be paying attention to, and we can see this now with all of the bombings in Gaza, and you know, no peep from world leaders. So put that out there. I know that you received, you and the other trustees received a response from an academic, but besides that one response, all of the response was positive. I got a lot of academics from UCU saying that they would like to back me in any other decolonization work going forward. I received several messages from academics in the region who were, you know, who thanked me for bringing this up. And I know that this wasn't included in the panel, so I didn't submit it as evidence, but I would be very happy to submit those, you know, after this panel to you. But they were just very, very lovely messages that I received. And besides that one, and obviously you didn't see the response that I wrote to that academic, just because I didn't feel, because I don't think he intended to bring in the trustee, so I thought it's best that we keep it private. So I told him, you know, thank you very much for your response. I fully respect that, you know, you have your opinion, and I'm sure that you would respect that I have mine. But you know, the intention was never to offend, but thank you for sharing with me. And you know, we sort of left it at that. And I would also like to emphasize that the reason why I felt it was the correct forum is because my position as an officer is a political one. Yes, the staff are not my membership, but as president of Greenwich Students Union, I am a governor. So I work with the university, with the other governors who are staff of the university, to bring things to students. Another reason why I felt it was important to be political is because this isn't the first time I've been political in press. For Black History Month, I wrote a very long, impassioned article in press about why it was important we observe Black History Month, because unfortunately not everybody understands why it's important to observe certain things, and that's completely fine. But it was, as something that I was leading on Black History Month, Israeli Apartheid Week, it was important for people to understand why I think this is important. And so I think it's 100% our right as officers to be political, to say our piece, so long as we're being respectful. And yeah, I was very pleased with what I put out, and the good responses were far outweighed anything negative. So yes, 100% would recommend, would do again.
Okay. Okay, cool. Yes, because I was aware that didn't really go out. It wasn't like a whole student-facing issue. It's just I was curious if you did have a response for that, because obviously I wasn't. Well, you made, you know, the decision to keep it private, which I think is quite smart. Okay, cool. Looking at the time that we have left, just a couple of tiny questions. Faith spaces, I know that's a really, really huge issue at the moment. Progress, challenges, obstacles.
Brilliant. So actually, the meeting that I was meant to have on faith spaces ended up being cancelled because Ben Valens, who was the estates member who was leading on it, was unwell. But the good news is it's actually happening at 4 o'clock. So we're going to hear about the progress that's happening on the Avery Hill multi-faith space. It's actually really exciting. It's not just a prayer space for Muslim students, but it's literally a multi-faith space. So there are several rooms, you know, one's for maybe meditation or silent prayer or whatever. Yeah, taking forward the recommendations from ISOC and other, you know, Muslim students, and bringing it forward. I guess it also helps that I happen to be a Muslim student, so I can, help with those recommendations in a more direct way. So yeah, we're looking for it to be. I don't know if I'm going to hear otherwise in this meeting that's coming up, but we're looking for this multi-faith space to be established by next year, next academic year. And as for the current faith space, the prayer space that we have in Avery Hill, unfortunately, there was no alternative space that could be given. So what's going to happen, what's happening is recommendations currently, so things that we can provide the current space. So what that might look like is a partition, for example, a movable partition, so that it can separate the brothers and the sisters who feel as though that the current partition isn't adequate. So that's what's happening with that. Hopefully in this next meeting, we do get some updates that are positive. And I look forward to sharing with the student body what they are.
Okay, great. And you made a striking point, which I was also going to ask about it actually being a multi-faith space, because I know the reason a lot of faith societies generally don't tend to use faith spaces is because they don't necessarily feel like it's, how do I say this, an open space for all faiths.
Yeah.
Which kind of defeats the purpose, because if you have a faith space, you would hope that faiths use the space. But yes, okay, timing. But yes, that is a point that I was going to ask. So thank you for mentioning it before I had the chance to. So definitely going to chase that up next time. Yes, okay. I suppose two more things.
Yep.
I'm just deciding which one is more important. Okay. So this is not really, well, it's not really student-facing work, but it will impact the student body eventually. CEO recruitment process. How's your experience of that, and any challenges, obstacles, etc.?
So CEO recruitment is underway, but right now it's underway from the side of the recruiters. So we've delegated an independent recruiter who is finding us all of these great possible CEOs. The shortlisting process starts next. The shortlisting process is in a couple of weeks' time, which would be done by myself and the chair of the board, Liz Jones. So yes, very much looking forward to that. Even though we're yet to actually meet the recruiters until the prospect CEOs until May. We have been given the names and the backgrounds. The work backgrounds of these people that are coming to interview for the role. But at the moment, we do have an interim CEO that's being brought in, which is, a very big relief, because even though everything is winding down at the end of the year, the fact that it's the end of the year means there's a lot of things to tie up. So that's very exciting. And quickly, I would also just like to add, because this is something that's very relevant for students, we are currently going through the process of recruiting new student trustees. Many student trustees, including Na, that we currently have, are leaving. Actually, all of our student trustees, except for Javed. So that's a really big thing that we're taking on right now. But the ads have gone out. We have received responses. We're currently right now in the process of shortlisting and calling in for interviews.
Bro, and I suppose the last thing I'll kind of put as, well, because our time is officially up, probably as an action, maybe not for next panel, maybe a bit before next panel, because I think you might already have access to this. Infographic metrics for your Know Your Black Britain. I still want it. I still want it.
When you say infographic metrics, what do you mean?
Yes. Okay. So do you remember, probably it was a few boards ago.
Oh, yes, I remember. Yes.
Yes. That exact thing, but for your exhibition. It would just be very helpful to me. Thank you.
Brilliant. Okay, which exhibition? Know Your Black Britain. Do you mean? Okay, brilliant. I will speak to comms and get a hold of that for you.
To be honest, a compilation of all of it would be great.
Yes. Okay, I will very gladly do that.
Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing it. So, wow, we're officially over time by some seconds now, but thank you very much for making yourself available. Your meeting at 4 p.m. That was definitely going to be something that we're going to ask about next time. But yes, thank you. And if nobody else has any more comments, I will bid you good afternoon.
Thank you very much. And do let me know if you want to see any of those, like I said, any of the responses that I received regarding. So do let me know and I will absolutely send them over.
Yeah, that'll probably be in your actions, but yes. Thank you.
Brilliant. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye.